It was my first meeting. It was hilarious. It was a very nice community.
We're walking around the park. We're about to, I don't want to say leave, but we're at a
He left and we came back.
He wasn't there?
Yeah, he wasn't there. He left and we came back. But there's no fun in the easy deals, Pete. I'm telling you, there's no fun in the easy deals.
I agree. The easy deals, you make less money in the long run, right? Unless, there's a lease-up strategy to it.
And we're back on the MHP Exchange Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Rizzo. Joining me, my co-host, Eric Busuttil. How are you this morning?
A-okay, Frank, today.
Beautiful, beautiful. The MHP Exchange Podcast coming to you from the mobile home park capital of New York City, Staten Island, home to New York City's only mobile home park. On the Mobile Home Park Exchange, the MHPExchange.com, which is your source for opportunity, news, education, and entertainment in the MHP space. So if you are looking to find out more information about mobile home park investing, manufactured homes, check out the MHPExchange.com, where you can also see our series, Trailer Park Turnaround, where we have our own YouTube channel, which you can get on the MHPExchange.com. We have, and one other thing before we get started, if you like our show, if you want more information on our show, subscribe on Spotify, subscribe on iTunes, and rate the program as well. Give us a rating, give us your feedback. We want to hear that. And today, Eric, we have I think, a very special program. It's going to be a little different. We've got two guests that are going to be part of this program. And I think we're going to hit a topic and kind of give a behind the scenes look, right, of what it really takes to buy and kind of peel the onion back on a mom and pop operated mobile home park, right? If you're in this space and you're looking for value, where do you find value? Where do you find value?
In opportunity.
In opportunity. And a lot of what you're going to come across are these legacy owners, first generation built it, transfers down to family who just doesn't, they're not mobile home park operators. They end up with an asset that they, probably don't want, or they definitely don't want. And it gets a little disheveled along the way. And we just closed on a community in Jacksonville, North Carolina, a 47-unit mobile home park that, kind of a little bit of a stinky situation, to say the least.
Well, interesting. This is, park number 22 or so of ours. And pretty much every single park we went back and forth with the pros and cons, and we do that exercise. And it's just so important. This one in particularly, we were in and out of it, 5 times before we really decided to go all the way forward with it. And there's just so much that goes into that between us and our team in really coming to the determination if we're going to take down a property or not. And it's super important to do that, because by doing that, you're really figuring out what you need to do to get this park to where it's got to be if you do decide to move forward with it. And this park in particularly, Pete Falcone, our CFO, he really wasn't happy with this park at all. All the way through the end, he was just not interested in this community. And I think now his tune has changed. And I think that's partially because, we allowed him to go through this exercise with us. It's been a multiple of times of doing that, but I think he got it finally. And drilling down on the numbers is where we ultimately became very comfortable.
And on top of that, we have joining us very, very special guest, Alex Willer, who's the director of Aline Capital, the MHRV advisory team. And Alex was instrumental in facilitating this transaction. So Alex came in, this was an off-market transaction. He was able to put two different parties together. He could go through the story of what it is in dealing with a mom and pop owner. And he'll tell you, bad challenge books and records, trying to get through, all the information that's necessary to make a determination. And he was integral in keeping the opportunity together for both parties, right? And he was able to do that. So we have him joining us, and Alex has been a member of Aline's team for close to 4 years. He's now the director, like I said before, of the MHRV advisory team. He's a graduate of College of Charleston with a degree in finance and economics. Alex, thanks for joining us. Happy to have you on the program. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me, Frank. Happy to be here.
And of course, for those of you who follow the program, we have Peter Falcone, our Chief Financial Officer for Stone Capital. How are you doing this morning, Peter?
I'm starting to think you guys like having me on. Really sends the ratings through the roof.
Yeah, we do. I think it kind of diverts. Eric likes to throw a couple of zings at me. Now we can divert it and put a little bit towards your direction. Alex, we had this conversation before, and we became, we had a relationship with your group, but we never really hit on anything, right? And I guess a couple of years, with John and myself and you and myself, we've gone back and forth. But really over the last, I'd say about 6-7 months, I think we've developed a relationship, and I attribute that to, smooth sailing doesn't make a good captain, right? Relationships in this business are built over challenges, right? Where you can get over, kind of really sticky situations. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we can kind of go into this deal. But tell us how you got into the MH space.
Kind of fell into my lap, honestly. I started doing commercial brokerage basically right out of school. I left Nashville, where I moved from Charleston. I was there for a year. It was during COVID. Found these guys on LinkedIn at Aline and came in for an interview, got hired, and they were like, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "Let's do multifamily." Everybody that's what was popular. It still is. And I was going to run with that. And there was another guy here working for mobile homes, and he had a seat open and he was doing well. And they were like, go check that out. And he ended up leaving and starting his own company with his brother. And that was it. We just took it and ran, basically. I met John. John was doing multifamily. John came over with us basically 2 years ago. And then we met Dylan a little over a year ago as well.
And for those that don't know, that's John Drummond and Dylan Kidd.
Yes, John Drummond and Dylan Kidd. John's been doing this for close to 6, probably 7 years now. A lot of it's multifamily and MHP.
Was there a moment, I know, because you're coming out there, you're a broker, you're looking at, multifamily is a little different than MH. MH, there's a different, I almost think there's a different skill set and tenacity you need, because as people want to get into MH, then they start peeling back the onion and they pull themselves out. But is there like an aha moment for you where you said, all right, this is where I want to be. This is the space I want to be in. Was there something that kind of registered with you like, wow, there is a real big opportunity here?
Absolutely. It was my first meeting. It was hilarious. It was a very nice community. We met with him, and he had cats on the table and he was eating a biscuit. And I was like, this is hilarious. And we took it. We didn't get the deal, but it was a good experience. And from that moment, it basically clicked in my head. I was like, okay, there's a lot of opportunity here. There's room to grow it. Clearly you can see there's plenty to do. There's so much to work on, so many people to meet. We're here in the Southeast, so we basically started booking meetings every week, and we would just take it and run. And as we did that, we got better at it.
And Alex, and I know you're in the Southeast, but what states do you cover? Do you cover all of the Southeast? Is there certain states you don't cover?
Right now, we basically cover the Carolinas and Georgia. Okay. We've done some of Alabama and a little bit of Virginia, but we just hired 3 more, and that's going to basically encompass the rest of the Southeast, probably excluding Florida, maybe the Panhandle, but we'll do some Midwest too with that.
Question. What would you say your niche is in, or not niche, but your strategy is. Is your strategy any different than others in finding these communities for sale, or like what is your strategy, your team strategy? Are you boots on the ground? Are you telemarketing? Are you doing mailers? I'm just curious how you guys are growing your network.
It's a bit of a mix. Like we'll do Christmas cards, Thanksgiving cards, just handwrite those to anybody that we have met with that we think is close to selling. A lot of those are mom and pop owners. Any of the buyers we've worked with, we'll send something around for Christmas time. A lot of it is just call, text, book a meeting, get in front of it, and do as many meetings in that area as you can when you're there.
Just pounding the pavement. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into Village Oaks, right? Well, former Village Oaks. So Village Oaks, 47 unit park, right? Obviously off market deal. You kind of facilitated this. You had known what our buy box was looking like. So talk to us about like your initial conversations with these people, because it was really scattered. I mean, you had it was a challenge for you, right? I know getting information, getting anything, like what was that process like?
Tricky. I knew the dad previously. This was one of the first deals I actually found years ago. And nothing ever happened with it. He never was ready. So we just dropped it. But it always stuck in my head. We've got a folder with everything that we've ever really made contact with. And just dropped it. A few years later, Frank calls me and says, "Hey, we just closed a deal in Jacksonville." And this pops in my head. There was another one we were working on too. And I was like, "Oh, I'll reach out and see what's going on." And it just snowballed from there, essentially. We try and take notes of everything that we've worked with or have been close to. That way you can make deals like this happen. These are where the opportunities are, in my opinion. Like you said, Frank, it's not the prettiest, but it works.
So for those, and obviously if you're listening and you weren't part of the process with us, just to give everybody a little color and background on this, the gentleman you spoke to, the original person you spoke with, the owner, had built the park, right? He was, so this was, and getting a little history on this, he owned a barbershop, and his dream was owning a mobile home park. So he bought roughly 20 acres of land and built this from the ground up in 1980. Like just built the park, decided that that's what he wanted to do. And then he ran it, and it was his passion. Like he was there every day running the park. And while he did it, the place was humming. It was filled. It was clean. It was crisp. Now, you spoke to him when you first got in the business. That's 4 years ago. He was ill.
Mm-hmm.
He passes 3 years ago. And since then, right, his wife, who's elderly, right, she's in charge of the park, right? And this is not uncommon in the space. His 2 children, well-accomplished gentlemen, they just had no interest in it. So what happens during that time in the last 3 years?
What happens is you have kids who have their own lives and their own businesses going on, and obviously they're trying to help their mom. But it's tough to run a mobile home park, period. And if your head's not in it and you're not there every day and you're not keeping a pulse on it, or you don't have a team there doing it for you, it just becomes very difficult to keep that community going in the right direction. And ultimately, things just end up falling by the wayside. And one thing that I'll just lay out there, I've never said this before, but if you lift your foot off the pedal for a little bit on a mobile home community, it can get out of control very quickly.
So I'm only going to stop you there because I think you're being a little modest in terms of what we're dealing with on the ground at Village Oaks.
But when I say very quickly, Frank, I mean, if he only passed 3 years ago, right, it's gone out of control super quick.
So quite frankly, and I think I've mentioned this to Alex, and we've talked to Pete about this. This is, since Grove Estates, which was the second park that you and I had purchased together, this is probably the worst park that we've acquired day one.
Worst park meaning, toughest turnaround.
Toughest turnaround. two drug dealers that are using basically the side road to sell drugs, right?
And can I just tell this story? Because this is a great story. And Alex, this was kind of like a turning point. The first time we met.
Before you do that, right? Aline, I want you to tell the story. So Alex will tell you they wanted $1 million, right? That was their target price. And we, based off the numbers, we said, you know what? We're looking there, 47 lots, 36 homes. They own like 13 of them. So you have to, in this space, be comfortable throwing out a PSA to get somebody interested, right? You have to be comfortable saying, hey, I'm going to throw you out a number. Give me a little time to due diligence. I'll be down on the ground, right? So, because this is why this story becomes great. Right. So we agreed on, they wanted $1 million. We agreed on 825, right? You got that. Actually, we wanted lower, and you, Alex, was like, listen, this is going to make the deal. You got to get into. So we agreed to 825, right, Alex?
And we were comfortable at that number.
And we were comfortable based on what was told to us, which is very, very little. Pete wasn't too happy. We were like, let's take a look at it, right? Pete's face, you could see.
Guys, no income coming from this park.
But we didn't know at that point. Because everything was kind of. So we go down there. Now, tell the story.
Well, first and foremost, there's just so much going on there.
No.
We're standing outside. We meet one of the sons for the first time. Nice guy, knew a lot about, the community and the history. As far as homes are concerned, I mean, we're going in and out of homes. We're talking to tenants. Some tenants are saying they own the home. They really don't own a home. We're going in and out of their houses. They're not asking any questions. We're looking at the paper. Everything that we have on paper is really not lining up with, what these tenants are telling us and what he's telling us. And I don't think he's doing it intentionally. I just think that things got out of control and there's different people there and there's tenants popping out of their doors telling us this and telling us that, because I think they understand that the community is about to be sold and they're seeing us. And while we're standing there, I mean, one of the pivotal points, I mean, when we first got to this community, I mean, there's one block where literally we seen about 10 cars pull up, stop, someone go over to the car, leave 10 times, right? So obviously there's, drugs coming out of this home, right? So we're talking to the landlord and we knew that it was going on and we're talking to the landlord like, hey, he's like, yep, telling us, yeah, there's drugs going on there. But, we're walking around the park. We're about to, I don't want to say leave, but we're at our
He left and we came back.
He wasn't there?
Yeah, he wasn't there. He left and we came back.
Right. Okay. So we get back to this community and we took a ride down the road. Great market, by the way. I mean, the surrounding areas is beautiful homes, beautiful other mobile home parks right down the road. And literally felt like I was in an episode of Cops. There was 3 police cars, undercover cars, guys with bulletproof vests, rifles surrounding a home, the drug home. And they're literally pulling people out of this home while we're there. And it was just like, all right, well, this is a huge problem. And, that's where, things kind of started changing on our minds there. We had to get our numbers down a little bit more to make this make sense.
I think Alex was my first call from that, right? And I was like, I think so. I think that does warrant a little price reduction, right? So that was price cut number 1, right? And I think we came in at around 750, right? That was the first drop.
That was where it was signed at.
So we said, all right, we know we got to deal with this issue. We're going to have to eliminate these people, in terms of, removing them. It's going to take some time. There's a little bit of challenge that we're going to have to face here. Let's get to 750. So I'm going to bring Pete in here, right? Because even at this number, this is where we're looking at this, at 750, we have a market that we're already in the space. It is a great location. I had looked at a park down the road 5 years ago. I missed out on getting it. The park is now, new homes in there. They're getting a nice amount of lot rent. They did a tremendous improvement there. So you're on a main thoroughfare. There's a new school that's right nearby. I'm sitting down with Pete. Pete, why didn't you? And just our process. We obviously we like to take a 10th man approach, pros, cons. We go back and forth, but everyone's got to be on board whenever we do anything, right? We don't acquire anything that we're not there, and we're very specific. We turn down a lot more deals than we take. But Pete, in the beginning, you you were really against this. Why were you against this deal?
Yeah, I think there were a number of reasons why I was against this. It's, first, the basis, right, in the rent roll just didn't add up to the correct cash and cash returns. I mean, these people were running it very loosely, right? We were looking at somewhere around 85% collections loss, from what we could tell roughly, right? But once I heard this raid story, it was like, all right, here we go. Here's another turnaround project. It was like an easy deal for once. So it's
but there's no fun in the easy deals, Pete. I keep telling you, there's no fun in the easy deals.
I agree. The easy deals, you make less money in the long run, right? Unless there's a lease up strategy to it. But this is the type of deal where we got the multiple. But it was a drag. I knew it was going to be a drag. It's not what I wanted day one, right? Where we have a year of negative cash flow. But that is what we specialize in, right? So I think, it was that, right? It's like, okay, now we really have to micromanage the budgets and, the expenses that are going into this park and really say, okay, we need to get it at a basis that makes sense. So we have multiple exit options, right? It's either refinanced or, pump into CapEx and then flip it, right? So really became more of a difficult turnaround project. And then I think as we started drilling even further, there were, it's like, okay, multiple drug dealers, bad tenant base, right? And I think at the end of the day, what we want is a well-run community where all the tenants are happy and, they're comfortable living there, right? And I think that's, once we had that thought process, right, that's where I started to kind of say, okay, we got to make this place better for people, right? And kind of spiral from that.
So here is part of the challenge too, because Pete alluded to it. It's, digging deeper. So, and here's where you have to have a little comfortability and you have to look at maybe some alternate due diligence there, because we were harping on Alex about getting, you have a required list of documents that you need, that you'd like. Rent rolls. You want current lease ledgers. You want income and expenses, right? You want to have year, make, models, bill of sales, titles for all your homes, right? You want to have all of that. Alex, how was it in the collecting of the document phases, like the leasing and the leases? How was that process for you?
It was hard. They didn't have anything. Really pertinent info. It was the leases, half of them weren't signed. We got those like 2 weeks before closing because they didn't know they had them previously. The rent roll was essentially a ledger that was handwritten with like 5 lines per month. It wasn't a whole ledger at all. And they would be scanned in from like the local FedEx store. So it would take days to get. And you had to just keep asking, call, hey, how's it going? What, any update for me? Like, did you scan it in yet? Basically. And just not annoy, but it's a consistent deal. You're working, change the times, constantly saying, hey, please send that to me.
So were you guys thinking this deal was going to fall apart as we're at this stage? Were you guys thinking like, all right, this, you put a lot of time in, you're not getting documents. We've never done a deal together. Were you thinking like, hey, I'm not going to have the documents. We're in diligence. These guys are going to walk. Like, what do we do? Was that something that was happening in conversations with you and your team?
It definitely crossed our mind. Yeah. We weren't terribly worried about it, considering, I mean, you saw it first and we were like, okay, I think everybody was on the same page going into it about what was expected. And I remember we were pretty clear. We were like, I don't know what they're going to have as far as documents. Granted, typically that means there's at least something. There wasn't much to give here at all. And that definitely didn't give us any ease.
Yeah, I mean, I think even during right before closing, we were trying to figure out titles and they're like, yeah, we don't really have titles.
Whatever documents we received were created like in the end stage of the deal. Like there was no documents at all. I mean, it was stuff that they put together just based on their knowledge and, whatever information they were able to find. There was no historicals or anything organized at all.
And-
And I think that's, and that's how you get your numbers where you need them to be, because the seller needs to understand that, that's how they get to understand,
But-
why you're at your price you're at.
But not having all this and some other challenges that along the way led to another reduction, right? So, well, first that was
Exactly.
$750. We ended up, because of some of those challenges, because they didn't have all their information correctly, even though we had checked, right? We had checked with the county. We had done our diligence on that, and we found out a couple of things, right, that were important to us. Some of it required a little bit more work, right? Because they were in at a time where they could do anything they wanted. We have to formalize everything, which is going to require a little bit of work, which we anticipated, but we ended up getting that price reduced again to $659, right? And in the course of doing that, we also found that, hey, if we don't have those documents, because we're comfortable enough in the space that we know what we can recreate, we know what in terms of like budgeting and pro formas and where our business plan would be, right? Because we know we can anticipate that. But we also found out a couple of other things, right? There's 20 acres. There's probably about 10 acres that aren't being utilized, right? So there's, potential to expand out that community from 47 to nearly 60 lots, right? Just on site, just on what's there, which, right, makes this a better basis play, right? Because now we have the ability, it is work, it's capital that has to be, put into the property, but we can take 47 and now turn it into 60 by managing or better maximizing the space that's there, right? But in the fact that they didn't have, they had essentially nothing. That led us to our next reduction, which was $659, which was probably a difficult conversation for you to have with those people, Alex, right?
They weren't happy, but it helped. You did the right thing with choosing the local surveyor. They knew who that was. Everything lined up, and we were able to make it make sense for them. It's hard to tell someone that the pad doesn't exist when they know it does. Legally, though, it doesn't. Right? By zoning, you have to stress to them and say, you call the zoning board as well. And if it's the same story, tell them to ask for the same person you spoke to, talk to the surveyor who knows them. That helped tremendously. I don't know how it would have gone without that piece. Just educating them on what happened, why is that there, and this is why Frank wants this.
And on top of that, I think they saw with us, because we were in communication with them and we were steadfast, and this is what we want to do. They saw Eric and I down there 3-4 times, and knew that we were using people locally because we already had a relationship with them. It wasn't, and we were okay with some. We weren't just telling them, well, we weren't just saying this is what we want. We were giving them the thesis, right? Like, this is why this has to be at this point, and we were able to get it reduced there. And I think that was the turning point for Pete, right? Like, that's where you started to see, because Pete and I go back and forth in our model, like how we look at this, how we're going to implement the business plan. What's the, and Eric and I sit down, here's the CapEx plan. Here's what we want to do. Here's what we need to do. Here's what our expected return would be. Pete, how did that kind of play into the new price reduction? If you want to go through the numbers of where we see the project from, acquisition, CapEx, where we are 18, 20 months from now.
I think, at a high level, right, the price reduction really kind of gave me comfortability because it allowed more wiggle room, right? And when we are underwriting the deals, we always sandbag our numbers to a certain extent. And, always want to protect our investors, A, their capital, right? And B, to be able to, tell our investors, say, at baseline, this is what we expect. On the worst case scenario, this is what we expect. We never really try and tell them the upside because we like to underpromise and overdeliver. I think we've done pretty much every time, and leading to great multiples. I think what really, the price reduction got me comfortable because I knew that if we put in the capital that we had to put in here, we would have enough room on the exit to make this a deal where we could hit the multiples that we need to hit. That being said, right, we know that there's a big turnaround project here. We, in the process of due diligence, we knew most of the tenants had to go. They were problematic. They were not community standard holders, including these drug dealers, people that haven't paid for years, et cetera, right? And, for us used to take us 2 years to turn around properties. I think now we could probably start the upswing, in about 12 months after we get out the initial tenants and, start bringing in new homes, really kind of expanding the property a little bit and releasing this property. And so right now, between year 2 and year 3, we're projecting NOI of about $100,000.
But so and back up just because, so we're acquiring the property we acquired the property for $659, right? Our initial CapEx plan is about $450,000. That'll get us through not establishing the new 13 lots on top of the 47, but that'll get us through that point. And that plan would get us to over 40 units on site. So we're the way we're looking at this, right, was, all right, our capital invested is about 1.1, right? That's real hard dollars, right? Now you're looking at where that rent roll would be. Now that rent roll is based on just lot rent only, correct?
Right.
Okay. That doesn't include the RTO income, right? Which we don't underwrite. It's part of the package, but that's not part of the valuation. So at those numbers in that market, that does one thing, right? First thing it does, it's over a 10% cash on cash return, right? So we know that after invested dollars going into year 2, we've got over 10% cash on cash return, which is key number 1, right? And number 2, what does that do? Where expected value? Obviously things could change, but where are you expecting valuation on that parcel to be?
So I think in today's higher interest rate environment, we would expect the valuation to be approximately 1.4 to 1.5 million. If cap rates start compressing again and interest rates start coming down, I think we could push that valuation closer to 1.7.
I mean, Alex, you're obviously in the space. You've brokered out and facilitated a lot of transactions there. I mean, do those numbers sound right for you? You think that type of NOI, 42 of the 47 lots filled, that market, do you think that if we were to put that on the market, we would be around those numbers, like 1.4 to 1.5?
Yeah, absolutely. That lines up. And especially if you go in there and do what your plan is, execute your business plan, pay the new homes, sell them off. That's the recipe for success.
So in that, right, so that ticks our box, right, of where we're looking to be, right? And that's where you got comfortable with the deal, right, Pete? Because then you said, all right, look, when we knew what we had to put in, there's no surprise. You want that community right, you got to do that. And we knew that there's going to be a drag, in Pete's words, of getting those residents out. And here's why you want to do that. Because there are some people, and Eric and I met them, right? The woman we met, that we spoke with, she's one of the original residents of that park. And she's there, she's in that community, she owns her home, she doesn't want to leave. And what was she saying that was happening? The community was overtaken, right? So 2/3 of that community is challenged residents. And when she would complain about them, they set her storage unit on fire, right? And here's a woman who this is her home. She's vested in this. She doesn't want to move her home.
No, and listen, again, going through that process, I think these sellers realize that, it's a certain type of group that's going to be able to come in there and do that. And this is what we do. We've done this before. You can't do this only from a distance. I mean, we've been able to execute on our plan from a distance in certain situations. This is going to require a constant foot on the pedal, not just our team on the ground. Frank and I and our team from here will be down there regularly, probably once every 2 weeks to 3 weeks for the first 6 months. I mean, we've been down there a few times already. We're going down next week. We're going to spend some time there, and the time that we spend there in the beginning is, making people know that they're not going to be able to burn somebody's shed and get away with it.
Yeah.
Right. And so we've already got our team communicating with pretty much every resident that is called in, letting them know to expect to see us next week. We're going to speak to every single tenant face to face, hear what they have to say, look them in the eye, and let them know that shit's not going to fly. And as Frank would say, there's no bad real estate. There's only bad prices. And this is the perfect example.
That is correct. I mean, I think it's important that you guys are going down again next week, and it's a big part of turning this park around, right, is going to be the eviction process. And, evictions aren't cheap, and you never want to evict anybody, but it's needed, especially when, if you got somebody getting raided by NCIS and, local cops, ATF, whatever it is, right, DEA, you got to get them out. And evictions get expensive. They can cost anywhere from $800 to $1,500 per person easily. And, that's just depending on, okay, how, are they going to get out as soon as they get the notice? Are they going to fight this? But we, I think we're comfortable saying, okay, we're going to get everybody out within 60 days. That has to get out.
And when we say everybody, we mean the people that need to get out, right? So we know that we have to take it down because the woman that's in there that wants to stay there in her home, those are the people that you do this for. So yes, there's an economic benefit to this, and you do this for that, but the rewarding feeling is when those people that are stuck in a situation that they need somebody to come in and change that. By changing that community, you're impacting them as well, and that's one of the beauties of this business and this space, and one of the reasons why I think it's gotten us hooked, because you could see that impact on the people that you're.
It's not only about the multiple. It's about making,
the communities better,
people's lives better, right? And
That's what we care about.
yes, it is nice. And listen, we've turned around some tenants that were heading the wrong way. We have, but people have to buy into that, and that's what. Yeah, that's why you got to look these people in the face. Let them know what your plan is. Let them know you're here to make the community better. And if they want to buy in and make the community better with you, by all means, we're willing to do that with you. But if not, you're gonna have to go.
Yeah, this was great. This was kind of a little bit of behind the scenes to give both color on the broker side and on the buyer side of what happens, especially when you have a challenge deal like this from the get go. Alex, we appreciate your assistance in the deal. Why don't you tell us what's next for you? What are you guys focused on now? Where do you see yourselves going? Right.
He's focused on getting us an easy deal. That's
yeah. Number one is
I don't have to deal with them two anymore.
Number one's more deals for Frank and Peter. Number two is we just want to grow. We want more traction, more closings, manufactured housing communities, RV parks across the Southeast and so on from there. We've got our footing. We know what we're doing. We're good at it. We just need to take it and grow it. And that's why we hired. We need essentially more boots on the ground. We can't handle what we have already. And we just need to take it to the next step, and see what happens. Not as loosely as that. It's a little calculated, but yeah, we're going to take it and just train them how we do it and advise them, the younger brokers. And if it should work, it's going to be.
So if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way that they can contact you? What's the best way that they could reach out? If they have questions about the MH space, they're looking to buy a deal, they want to get access to your listings, other than checking them out on the MHPExchange.com, what's the best way that they can get in touch with you, Alex?
LinkedIn's great. LinkedIn messaging. We just redid the Aline Capital website. It's brand new. It looks very clean. There's a little box on there you can fill out, and that'll go directly to my email. It's alinecapital.com. If you Google it, it should pop up first. If not, email awiller@Aline Capital. I respond pretty quickly.
Excellent. Thank you. Any last parting words?
No, Alex, thank you very much for helping us make this deal possible. Really look forward to working with you again. looking out for that next deal from you, man. Anything we could do to help you, please make sure you utilize the MHPExchange.com. It is going to be the most useful tool available for a broker like yourself and people in the space looking for information and looking for tools to help them be successful.
And if you have questions about the MHP space, if you want to find answers, check out Chat MHP, the industry's only AI specific, designed and trained on MHP and RV investing in there. So if you have any questions, that's the spot to go, the MHPExchange.com. Additionally, if you like our show, subscribe to it on iTunes or Spotify, rate our show, and we want to hear your feedback. So you could comment at the MHP Exchange or send us a DM. We'd love to hear comments from you, and tell us about your deals. If you're, a community owner, you just closed the deal, it's something that happened that's interesting that we should talk about, send that information on. We'd love to hear that. We'd love to hear success stories. We'd love to hear challenges, obstacles overcome. That's what we do here. That's why we do this. Until next time, Frank Rizzo at the MHP Exchange. Thank you very much.